moving on. So, and we could talk about Andor, what we've seen of it so far. You're caught up. I'm caught up.
I'm caught up. Yeah.
So we can just segue right into Andor with this. About a week ago, someone on Twitter, what's his name? I think it's this dude here. Yeah, let's just read his tweet real quick. Brandon Katz. He said, last week I tweeted about Andor's audience demand lagging way behind other live-action Star Wars shows. While Andor is behind the others at this point in their respective runs, I input the data incorrectly and it's performing much better than the initial tweet showed. It has hit exceptional demand in several instances. I apologize for the mistake, 100% on me. So earlier, he had tweeted out this graph that had shown that Andor, the general interest, which I found suspicious to begin with, because I'm not really sure how you calculate that interest and what that interest is a measure of.
It was like rando guys on Twitter tweeting out graphics and shit. I'm like,
well, this dude is a professional that does this, for the Observer, the Wrap, Parrot Analytics. He has credibility in this. He just fucked up this one time. So correction, Brandon. Jesus, is the worst possible font to put this correction in. Holy shit! I gotta highlight it in order to read it. Brandon Katz, Parrot Analytics data analyst that posted the graphic seen below concerning Andor's audience demand numbers, has issued a correction on social media. Apparently, while Andor is still behind other Star Wars shows in terms of demand, when compared to their respective streaming landscapes, it's performing much better than expected, even hitting exceptional demand levels. See the correction below. So, according to Parrot Analytics, Andor has had demand over the past 30 days of 31.3 times higher than the average streaming show at the moment. As seen in the graph below, this brings it, so that's, the graph below is erroneous. I don't think he ever released an updated graph, but his graph caused a lot of conversation. And it caused a lot of conversation amongst the Star Wars fandom about, is Star Wars Andor a good show?
Oh, I would say it's a fantastic show. I mean, I'm not sure that the Star Wars fandom would think that, but I'm definitely buying what it's selling.
The funny thing is, and I tweeted this earlier, Matt Jarbo tweeted, Star Wars has become more grounded and interesting when it focuses less on Jedi versus Sith. I still love all Star Wars, but I really enjoy the boots on the ground stories. And my response to that was, the great irony from my end is I always wanted a grounded Star Wars focus less on Jedi, Sith, Skywalker stuff, and Rogue One was a working proof of concept. But I loved Obi-Wan and I'm very indifferent to Andor. Go figure. Yeah. And that's basically where, and it's weird to me that I feel this way, but that's basically where I'm at with Andor. Like, I'm somewhat indifferent to it. I think it has its high moments. It has some really great moments. It has a lot of issues with me that makes it hard for me to pay attention to it, honestly. Like, I find myself drifting out of the show while it's on and like doing other things. Like, I've never really super compelled by it. And I want to start by talking about, those first 3 episodes. They dropped them all on the same day.
Yeah.
And I watched them all. And one thing that really struck me with it was the pacing and the transition between episodes. And I thought it was something that would probably change as we move to releasing 1 episode per week, but it didn't. Like, the way that episodes end on the show is weird. Like, a lot of, and even the last episode kind of, or actually I don't even know if I fully finished the last episode. I probably did. I can't remember. That's how in and out of Andor I actually am. But like, I do like the setting. I like the general, I love the aesthetic. I think it looks beautiful. Especially that heist episode. Like, there's a lot around it that I like and want to like, but there's just something about the pacing of it that it just doesn't grip me.
Well, it has a foreign film pacing to it. It almost has like a Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, almost like or the American, like I'm watching. That's what I love about it.
I like the American.
That's what I mean. I love the fact that it's not slow to me. I love luxuriating in its atmosphere.
Yeah.
I love the script. I think that Cassian is great. It's got...
Oh, he's fantastic.
It's got what it has beyond, like, we can talk about high points or whatever. What it doesn't have is low points. It doesn't have...
Oh, I mean, that's... To me, most of it is low points.
No, see, to me, it has no points where the special effects look fake. No points where it seems cheesy and weird.
No, I mean, so
like,
that's what I was like, the
like,
aesthetic
you know
looks
what I mean?
beautiful, like... And they do a lot of practical work at it.
It actually feels real. The whole thing feels real. I'm completely transported, and I love seeing like this side of the Star Wars world, because it feels like it feels like what they almost tried to do with the prequels, like what they thought they were going to try to do with the prequels, but just didn't come anywhere near. And what it also does is it brings back the cold kind of fascist Britishness of the Empire from the initial movies. You know what I mean? And it also brings,
almost comically so. Like those dudes, those motherfuckers are British. In this show.
Well, that's the thing. That's the way that it was.
Yeah, I know.
When I first watched Star Wars, and it also brings back that mid-century vibe that the Empire always had. You know what I mean? That you get this sense that you get the same sense from watching movies like A Clockwork Orange a little bit, or Logan's Run. That mid-century sci-fi aesthetic that, you know, there was going pretty hardcore in the first Star Wars, and that combo of the Britishness, you get that cold sensibility, and it feels extremely real, and it permeates through the whole show. And I think I love all that. I think that's really great. I think it's really cool that it hasn't, like, I will say that, like, anyone that feels like it doesn't feel like Star Wars, I could agree to people that with a more like it doesn't feel like what we
it doesn't feel like what Star Wars has developed into, because Star Wars is definitely developed into a bombastic, like, kid-friendly action franchise.
I mean,
and this
it
is not
always was that a little bit.
It was always that a little bit,
but completely. The thing is that, like, in the first couple of movies, there was this aesthetic. It was in there, and it was mixed in with other stuff. And as the movies went on, it became more and more kid-friendly. By the time we get to Jedi, we've lost most of this aesthetic. But you know, those scenes in the Death Star where they're all sitting around the table and they're talking, and they're all British, and except for the one guy who gets choked out by Vader. You know what I mean? And it's all this how you know, kind of mechanical they all are, you know what I mean? In that sense, this movie goes back and it mines the shit out of that, and it feels so much more believable and real than the glimpses of like what the Empire that we've seen in some other movie, that's one interesting thing about this show that I like, is that you get more of what, like, the inner workings of the Empire are like in this than you do in any other. And it feels real. It doesn't feel fantastical or like mustache twirling.
Oh yeah, it's not cartoonish. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a bunch of. I love the scene of, like, the corporation that's responsible for security on that planet, and
that's great.
And there's, like, the guy who's, like, just super about being a company man, like, those are our employees, and they're like, and that dude, that old Scotland Yard, like, dude, that's just like, I'm going to a conference. I don't want to fucking deal with this.
And he warns him, dude, and he was right.
He was right.
It's like so funny is that exactly, and it's such a deep dive. We've never gone that far into what will essentially be a villain character. You know, I mean, it's weird, like, seeing him sit there eat cereal with his mom. I mean, there was a lot of, like, kind of auteur cinema in this show, and it's not as exciting, I guess, as, like, but just seeing him eat his mom where she's just fucking, and he's just sitting there, you know, I'm like, dude, to me, this is way more motivation for this character than anything I saw out of Anakin in the prequels. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get this guy, what he's dealing with, and what he's gonna snap, and what, you know, this when he gets, you know, and Andor gets to jump on him. I love the scene where Andor kills the guy, because, like talk about pacing.
Well, which guy? I'm taken aback at how quick he is to fucking murder. But
well, the thing is that he's.
I guess the first time it was at Axide.
In both instances, it was his only thing. It was he had to do it. You know what I mean? You know, the guy.
Well, he had to do it the first time. It was definitely more of a choice the second time.
Well, no. He had to kill that guy. This is the thing.
Not at that particular moment.
Well, no. I mean, the thing is that once that guy told him, this is what I was thinking in my head, and then he pulled. It was amazing. It was an amazing moment for watching it, because the guy's talking this, and I'm
hold on a second. So we were talking about major spoilers. Luckily, we've been vague enough about this to where this isn't super spoily. But major spoiler alert, we're going to get a little bit more granular. We're talking right now about, I guess, second to last episode. Well, second to last recently aired episode, I should say. So before we get to that part, because that was an absolutely fantastic scene, there are like 4 different story tracks to follow in this. There's Andor and what he's doing. There's Stellan Skarsgård and what he's doing,
who's also excellent.
And he's also absolutely fantastic.
The woman that plays his mom or his kind of mom, she is excellent. The episode I just saw her in, I was like, man, you know what I mean? The performances have been really great.
There's Mon Mothma and her husband, and like they're starting to kind of intermingle with I forget Stellan Skarsgård's character's name.
And Mothma like not getting along with their daughter and her husband at all. It's just like, dude,
that's the kind
they're going into this shit with these characters that I'm just like, wow, you know what I mean? It's like they're really it's not.
That's the kind of shit that like that's usually where like my mind floats away. Like I have you're gonna have to explain the Mothma shit to me because I do not know what's going on with any of that shit.
Because the scene that they had at the party where she's talking to the guy who's on Chandrilla.
That was the last episode, right?
Yeah, this was the last episode.
Dude, I got so distracted.
That was a fantastic scene.
Really?
Yes.
I may have to watch it again.
The thing is like, it's
this show is so deliberately paced.
You know,
it is, and the talkie doesn't bother me. It's deliberately paced. It's a lot of stuff. Like, it's obviously trying to be a spy show. This is an espionage,
but it's also British.
It's very British.
It's written by a British guy.
This is a BBC show.
The way they talk is and granted, a lot of it's the through line is there, but that was a great scene. Her husband, the weird dynamic. I mean, the funny thing is like,
and the fourth one is the security guy.
It's like this kind of shit. Like knowing about this kind of like stuff about Mon Mothma. Is to me more interesting than finding out like how Han Solo won the Millennium Falcon. Like I didn't need to know that. You know, it's great. I love the Millennium Falcon. I love Han Solo. But this is a character that was on the margins that we don't know anything about. But if you've read any of the stuff in Star Wars, she's immensely important to everything that happens in Star Wars.
She's financing the rebellion.
Well, yeah, but then she goes on to be the head of the New Republic for years after it's all, you know. There's a huge statue of her, you know, that they make, you know, and the woman that plays Mon Mothma is great. But I'll tell you, I'll go back to the scene where he shoots.
Well, hold on. Okay, I want to work up to that scene.
Okay,
because every scene that Diego Luna is in is fucking amazing. He's killing it. He's killing it in the show.
He's fantastic.
And I loved how they portrayed like the rebellion in its embryonic state, where it's just like they're literally the fucking Mujahideen or some shit. They're just dudes in the woods with literal. I don't know if I like or dislike the fact that their guns just look like AKs.
I know what they're trying to do.
I know what they're trying to do,
and
I like it, and I also don't like it.
I agree. It kind of takes me out. But at the same time, it's not any more than the little guns that they use in the first movies, where it's obviously like the German gun. I mean,
the Luger.
Yeah, you know. They've done it before. I would have preferred a more exotic-looking gun. But
I gave it a pass, but it did pop out at me.
Yeah.
You know, he gets.
But his gun's cool.
He gets talked into.
It's a total Deckard gun, though. It's a total Deckard gun from Blade Runner. It looks very similar to Blade Runner.
I don't remember what Deckard's gun looked like.
You can look it up, but yeah, it's.
I mean, he's holding the fucking thing right there.
You can look up Deckard's
I mean, that's
even
kind of the look of the Blade Runner poster there.
And loving Blade Runner, I like the Blade Runner aspect of this show.
There is that vibe.
Yeah.
There is that vibe, actually.
And that's the Blade Runner vibe, you know?
And I think maybe that's a part of it is like, you know, for people that say it doesn't feel like Star Wars, there are parts of the show that feels like Star Wars, parts of it where it's like, what am I watching here? And I think a part of that is, and I didn't really connect it until you just said it, it does feel Blade Runner. Like when she pulls up in that car, which looks super fucking sweet, by the way.
It's amazing. Car. The fucking CGI in this show, I know why Obi-Wan looks so janky, because honestly all the guys were working on this show, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But I didn't, like, again, awesome looking car, I loved it. but it didn't say Star Wars to me. It did feel kind of more like something from, you know, another 70s sci-fi thing, like a Blade Runner or something. And I get a lot of that aesthetic too, like, and maybe this is just a function of the fact that we're being exposed to parts of the Star Wars world that we were never exposed to before. So this is like all new stuff. And I should accept it as being exposed to a part of Star Wars that I've never been exposed to before. They were at an airport at some point, and I was like, "What are they at LAX?" Like it just looks like a fucking random ass airport.
They would have to be.
There would have to be an airport. Yeah, of course.
That's the thing. Is like all this stuff. Like there's a TV. They're like watching TV, and it looks like a kind of 70s old TV. And I was like, "It's the news." And Juniper goes, "They're watching the news," and I was like, Yeah, they would watch the news. I mean, that makes sense.
Why wouldn't they watch the news?
I mean,
like, it's a weird eating cereal with your mom. Like, there's a lot of stuff like that where it's like, okay, I get, like, if this didn't have the Star Wars name attached to it, maybe my perception of it would be a little different.
Sure.
But I think because I'm watching a Star Wars show and I'm expecting a certain thing from Star Wars, as I've been Pavlovian trained to expect, like, you know, and maybe this is a tremendous credit to the show. It's subverting my expectations in a number of different ways that makes me really, you know, maybe I'm not reacting to it the right way.
Well, here's the thing about I will say this to your point. The entire time as they're making all this Star Wars content, everyone's saying, like, what, you know, they're going to have to branch out and make a different type of Star Wars show. And there's all this debate on, well, what feels like Star Wars and all the shit with The Last Jedi. It's like, it doesn't feel like Star Wars and all that kind of, like, various debate, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, at some point, they're going to need to make something that, like what I've heard people say, like, I want to see, like, a Star Wars horror movie. Like, what would that be like? And, you know, you hear that kind of stuff and you think, like, would that even work? And then this was described as a Star Wars spy movie. And I was like, well, that would be really different. And I was like, I mean, was that even something that could even work? I mean, is the style so endemic to Star Wars that, like, it just, like, the style of Star Wars that we're used to, it just would feel completely different. I wouldn't be able to. And honestly, the show is a lot different than the other stuff, but
it is,
and it doesn't feel like Star Wars in the classic sense. But I still really, really like it. I'm just like, yeah, it's Star Wars in the same world. I really, really like it. It doesn't bum me out. I'm not like, this isn't my Star Wars. Or, you know what I'm saying? I'm just.
And
like,
I've never been one of those types of
for sure.
Star Wars
I understand.
fans.
It's a completely different take, but I do. And the thing is it's like weird because with this show, almost more than other Star Wars properties, maybe because it's so different, I'm kind of like, hey man, you know, we can have this and we can have this shit over here. It's like, this is obviously for adults because Juniper she's not down. She's like, you know, it's hard for her to watch.
Well, yeah, this is a Star Wars show that kids are not going to be into.
No, it's not for kids really at all. I mean,
and that's the funny thing.
British people talk, just stare at each other
for
like,
there's
like 10 minutes.
There was a scene where it was like a big, tense argument between like the blonde lady and the black guy, and it's like, this isn't your jurisdiction. It's like, it happened to blah, blah, blah. Let me have access to those reports. I'm like, really? They're like going in on who's going to have access, and then like fucking Kyber comes in and he's like, you didn't turn in your reports.
That's where I recognize him from. It's Kyber.
That's Kyber.
He's fucking great.
He
Holy
is
shit,
fantastic.
Is that guy, like, right in the Imperial. So, like, yeah, I mean, the show is just so well done that, like, the craftsman part of me just so appreciates. It's been a long time, honestly, since I've seen something that Star Wars has made that's so consistently quality all the way through. Like, just like all the parts of it, like the CGI and the staging and the directing and the art direction and the acting and everything. And even the music, like you had said, the music it feels singular to this. Like, it doesn't feel like classic Star Wars music or even a take on that like The Mandalorian is.
Yeah.
It feels like almost like I'm watching like one of those Scandinavian shows with the Scandi soundtrack.
Yeah.
Which works. Those are cool. It doesn't bum me out. I don't think it would work. It works for this. You know what I mean?
As far as soundtrack is concerned, I think, I'm not saying it doesn't. I don't know if it works or doesn't work. I'm not saying that. Like, and you know my opinions on, you know, Star Wars soundtracks. It just sounds generic to me. Like, it sounds very like what I would expect to hear watching CSI or something.
It's weird because I understand what you're saying. I disagree, but I understand what you're saying. I would say that to me, I felt that way more about
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan.
And I felt, I have the
this.
exact same feeling. Like,
because I feel like this is more that kind of European show, like a British, it's on BBC Four, kind of Scandi style orchestral kind of score, which I don't feel that as an American thing really at all.
Yeah.
But and for whatever reason, it works. Whereas I feel like Obi-Wan a lot of times did feel like I was watching CSI. Like I'm hearing the cello ostinatos go dum 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 dum, and it's like just kind of like that. There was moments of that where I was like, particularly when he rescues Leia from inside she's in the chair under the water. That
I
music,
don't remember.
There was the music in there. I was thinking like this music is legitimately bad.
It's just library music.
I
literally don't remember any of the music.
I'm sure it wasn't, but it felt bad. I was just like, and I haven't had any of those moments with this show. In fact, in this newest episode, there was some kind of weird, like almost pop music that came on, but it felt alien. And at the same time, it kind of reminded me.
I'm gonna have to watch this latest episode again because I think I faded out
Juniper
too many
was
times.
like, I like this song, and it was like,
didn't they like when he walked into the bar in that first scene in the first episode? Weren't they also playing like a pop music kind of song?
It was a pop music. I don't remember that one so well, but this one particularly caught my ear because it sounded kind of like a variation of what they tried to do with like jazz and swing with the Cantina band.
Yeah.
Where they kind of did some weird instruments and put it through a flanger and stuff. It had that aesthetic, but it was almost like a pop thing. But it felt alien enough. It worked. But yeah, so to get back to that one scene, which I think it was really great. But I'm watching the show, and the guy basically tells Andor, he's like, "Hey, let's split the money and just get out of here. You can fly the ship. I can't fly the ship. Let's go."
Oh, okay, that scene. I'm sorry, we keep sidetracked.
Yeah.
Andor joins the rebellion, basically. He gets Stellan Skarsgård.
He doesn't really join the rebellion.
Well, he gets paid as a mercenary.
He's a mercenary
to work with them in their first heist, which is to steal the Imperial bankroll, on that planet. And their whole goal, and like he gets introduced to that group. Like the group dynamic is awesome. I loved all of those scenes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever watched The Bear on Hulu.
No, but I heard it was really good.
Fucking fantastic show. I love that show. And the dude you're talking about, that, spoiler alert, he ends up shooting, is the brother.
He's also the boyfriend from Girls. But
I haven't watched Girls.
What's her face's boyfriend?
I haven't seen Girls. I've only seen.
He plays an indie rocker musician, and he is borderline insufferable. You know what I mean?
Well, he's an awesome actor.
He is an awesome
everything
actor.
I've seen him in, he is an incredible actor. He's
good. He was
great in this role.
Yeah, he was great. But so there's a moment where he's talking to Andor, and I'm sitting there, and he's looking at him, and he's talking, and I'm like, and I thought to myself, I was like, dude, he's got to kill this guy right now. And I was like, there's no way they move forward after this, because he's not going to go along. He's not going to go along with it. Yeah. And there is no not going along with this guy. If he doesn't go along with him now, the guy has outed himself to him. He's going to try to kill them. He's going to try to. There's no way he talks him into going forward. And they continue to deliver the money, I was like, he's got one choice. There's
only one
he's got to kill this guy. And the second I thought that, the guy's in the middle of talking, he just balls on.
That was the crazy part. I was
just like, holy shit!
That was the crazy
amazing,
part. Like in the middle of that dude talking, he just and you could see the look on his face was so like, good. I've got no choice. Boom. And I was like, this guy is like fucking a mass murder. Like he needs to relax a little bit. But it was a great moment.
He's a fucking realist.
He is like the ultimate realist.
I was doing the raw calculations in my mind. I was in the same place, and I just wasn't expecting it. And I was like, I told Aaron, I told Juniper and Aaron, I was like, holy shit, he's got to kill this guy right now. There's no, and then literally he just takes his gun out and shoots him. And I was like,
there is no,
holy shit.
There's gonna be an update where that dude is gonna be like McClunky, and his head's gonna he's gonna try to shoot Andor, and his head's gonna and boom, McClunky.
Totally, dude.
No, that was a legitimately great scene. Like I liked that group. I liked heist made sense.
It did.
It was like their escape was awesome. I love like the meteor shower.
Yeah, I mean, talk about like creating set pieces that are beautiful and feel real.
And that's the interesting part, is because again, like the show has an amazing aesthetic and it looks cool, but up until that point, like it's been very deliberate. Like all of its moments were character moments, like, see, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing, like, definitely not. That's kind of like the whole point of, acting. But also the point is you put something fucking awesome. We're going to talk about Rings of Power in a second. You put something visually amazing on the screen, you tie those two things together. Andor didn't do that until that was like the 4th episode.
I don't know, man. The 3rd episode had this scene with the shootout with the shit coming down. I love that scene.
That, to me, that felt video gamey. I was like, oh, what? Like I could almost see like the little the flashing indicators on the floor where the thing was gonna fall, and I was like, oh, you got to make sure you hit the dodge button before that thing falls on you there.
I thought it was
cool, but I just felt like that was like a little video gamey to me. I actually thought that the whole and it's weird, like I think that the larger scene of the security forces coming into the city and all of that was more of like a masterclass on creating a tense action scene without action. Like it shows them walking, like they're all banging on the things, totally. And they're walking through like the town looking, and like they're not paying attention to like everybody banging on the shit, and Andor is in the warehouse with what's his name, and he's got the little box or whatever, and it was all this really cool build up, and you had like these two characters. You had this guy who was straight-laced and like, I need to do it by the books and get like justice for our employees and blah blah blah, but like he's incompetent. Opposite of the guy next to him, who's like the ultimate bootlicker. It seems like he might actually be competent, like the Scottish dude. And it's like, holy shit, what a weird tag team here. Like, if this Scottish dude wasn't nearby, there's no telling how this guy might fuck this up. Solo. Yeah. But they still end up fucking it up, but only because Skarsgård had a plan, and they had a really cool out. And the whole sequence of like the car exploding.
I actually thought it was going to get hairier than it got.
Me too.
But I liked how it went down. I liked how the guy roped the guy's ship to the thing, and he takes off, and it's because it felt. But it also didn't feel gratuitous. I guess that's another thing about the show is it has a lot of restraint. There's a lot of narrative restraint. It didn't feel like it was like, now it's time for things to get badass. It didn't have, it's never like, and I, at this point,
But that's the cool thing about that heist part is because when it did get to the point where it's like, now it's time for things to get badass, it did it in a way that like, it wasn't like The Mandalorian where all of a sudden 100 Mandalorians fall from the sky and there's like a shootout and all, which was awesome. Don't get me wrong. I love that.
That was cool. I loved it too.
This was like, okay, we got to escape, and you have this really fucking awesome looking canopy of meteors coming down, and like TIE fighters are shooting at them. And
those TIE fighters, dude, they actually did an excellent job of making those things fucking scary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because when they see it, it's fucking tight, they all, I mean, it's like, they scramble so many of them, and it's like the weight, with just a few of them in this scene, like really, it's like, oh, this is gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
I loved how they showed the guys get down to the cockpit, and it was the classic, Yeah. Oh, it was great, man. And then they're flying off, and of course, I knew the little guy was gonna die. I was like, that guy's toast.
Guy, I mean, he for all of the praise and laudits that the writing gets for what it does, the one thing that I would say was a little on the nose was when that kid put on that red Star Trek shirt. As soon as he starts like talking all cheerfully about oh, what are you planning on doing, all that, or whatever the conversation he had with Andor was, I was like, okay, he's gonna die. Like,
well, I mean, I knew he was gonna die earlier than that, because I was like, because he was the true believer. And I was like, he's the guy that gets, and then when he starts writing this book, I was like, Andor's gonna end up reading that book, and it's gonna extra fuel for his fire. You know what I mean? And it makes sense. It's a very, but in this classic literature kind of way. It's he's this mercenary. He meets this guy. And, it doesn't rub off on him right away. It's going to be, because we actually see in this new episode some other shit. His mom essentially is like, and he's like, hey, I'm not, he's still Han Solo in this shit at this point.
Yeah, he went, I did see that part where he goes back to his hometown and he goes and talks to his mom and that droid, and he's like, I've got enough credits, we got to get out of here.
And she's like,
and she's like, let's go. He's like, we're gonna go in the morning. And at that point, I was like, all right, something's gonna fuck up. Yeah. I can't remember what happened. I don't know if I watched it.
The way that they hinted at the fact. What I love about this show is that there's been so little exposition It's been so refreshing. You know what I mean? It's like when they refer to something, they refer to it like they already know about it. You know, it's like when she talks about not walking through the square. She's like, I don't walk through the square because of, because of Clem. And you're like, oh shit. And it's the guy. And then he has the flashback earlier in the same episode when he sees the stormtroopers. He has kind of a flashback to, who I guess is Clem, is kind of his like adopted dad. You know what I mean? And then she says like, I never walk in the square because I don't ever want to see them. I see him hanging there to this day. And you don't know that they don't actually show it happen. They just reference it and they show a couple of little flashbacks.
What you're talking about.
Oh, dude, it's so masterfully done. You know what I mean? That it's like,
what episode was that?
It's the one that just aired.
Yeah, this is the one I need to rewatch more. I was super. I don't know. Maybe I was fucking drunk or something.
They may show us it eventually, but they don't need to. I know what happened now. You know, they show a part of them, hanging, seeing him seeing it, and they show him being mad about it very quickly in like flashes of his memory. But it's before you actually understand the whole deal. And she's talking about how this whole thing, and it's a great scene because she doesn't know that he's the one that did it. She's like, this thing has inspired her to fucking, and she's like, these guys, if they could hit the Empire, that means that we could actually do something, and I'm going to be a part of it. And he's like, no, it doesn't. Let's go. And he's like, I was the one. Let's get the fuck out of here. And and then she talks about how for 30 years she's avoided the square. You know what I mean? Because she, that's because she still sees Clem hanging there. And she's like, and then finally today when she heard that, I walked through the square. And it's like,
what do you think the character arc is going to be for the Kyle MacLachlan looking dude?
I have no idea. I mean, obviously he's like a Moriarty at this point. They're singing, they're building him up to be this Moriarty character, not Mortiarty.
Rick and
too
Moriarty.
Much Rick and Morty.
Moriarty being the classic nemesis to Sherlock Holmes. Yeah. For those that don't get the random ass reference.
It's like it's Dennis Miller over here.
Yeah, we're old over here.
Back before he was a dork. There was a day when Dennis Miller was cool.
Oh man, I don't even want to think about that. He is very far removed from cool right now.
Yeah. But I mean, like back in like 1992.
That was about that. Yeah, about that area. Yeah, about that realm. Yeah.
I thought he was awesome. Like I liked his comedy. He was so sarcastic. He was like, ha ha. That whole thing. Anyway. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the show so far.
Big fan of Andor. All right, I'm room temperature on it. It has its moments where it draws me in, but then obviously it has moments where I'm like distracted by too many other things.
Yeah.
So
too many superhero movies, dude.
It's
rotted your brain, bro.
Superhero movies are the same way for me, though. Like I watch it all, but like I get the same way. Like I have but ADHD, it takes a bit to suck me into something. Yeah. Like I had no problems with getting drawn into either House of the Dragon or Rings of Power. No problems at all. And Rings of Power is a pretty deliberately paced show in and of itself. So I guess it just depends on this. I know what it is. I think at least I know a component of it, and I realize this. And we've talked about this at some point in the past. I think I realized this recently playing Cyberpunk again, and it's just that like it's so much easier for me to get into fantasy than it is to get into sci-fi.
Yeah,
and
I can see that.
Granted, Star Wars is fantasy. It's just
but
in a sci-fi setting.
I would say this is
the closest
Star Wars has ever been in fantasy.
Yes, that's why. That is why.
This is science fiction.
This is science. This is Star Wars. That is a perfect way to describe this show. Andor is Star Wars as a sci-fi show.
Yeah,
and it's tough for me to get it. It's not impossible, and I do like sci-fi, but it's tough. It is notably harder for me to get into it.
Yeah,
as opposed to fantasy. I can get into any kind. You got a sword, it's some dragons or some shit. I'll get into it pretty fucking easily, But sci-fi takes a little bit. So I think that's probably what it is for me with this show. And even with the other Star Wars show, that it's flagrantly more fantasy. It's easier for me to get into.
But let's talk about something we can definitely agree on what the show is God, it looks beautiful.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
The sets and everything. I really think that they need to back off the volume with the rest of these shows a little bit. I think that.
I mean, that's like
Obi-Wan-
a budget. I think that's a budget thing too. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
they're producing like, and it's.
Do you think
it's
the
just,
show is way more expensive than than Obi-Wan or
No,
or
it's
The
just
Mandalorian?
that it's just that Disney, as the parent company that's making all this shit, they have too many productions going on between their Marvel shit and the Star Wars stuff. And the Star Wars stuff is kind of, like, there's a lot of things they announced that just kind of die, like Rogue Squadron.
They really should
Champions of the Republic or whatever that one was called, Rangers or Heroes or whatever it was
They
called.
shouldn't announce stuff. They should just do like Beyonce did with Lemonade. They should just be like, "Here's a show.
Here it is.
We made it.
Just drop it.
Live it
Yeah.
up. Watch it or not.
Yeah.
We don't give a fuck. We'll make another one."
Hey everybody, thanks for watching the video. If you liked what you just saw, hit the like. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. I'd appreciate it if you did both. They would be very good for the channel and help me build the community here. If you have any kind of comments or opinions or anything like that, by all means drop them in the comments section below. I like engaging with y'all, want to do more of that, so thank you again and see you next time.